It's my pleasure to introduce a dear friend, somebody with whom we have spent countless sleepless nights wondering as to where the Khoja community is going when we served together as office bearers of the World Federation for a number of years. He's a dentist by profession, but then he has a double PhD in bioethics and medical ethics, a scholar of great depth, and somebody very, very lucid. And he began with a vision of what we call the awakening project. From that we assume, Sibtain, that you thought Kapra Bada Sutache. Just aside, I think it's such an important project to say, the awakening project to say, let us rethink. And Sibtain has served as the Secretary General of the World Federation with Marumullah Sahib, and also during my term. He has actively participated in the affairs of the community, and now he goes around the world trying to feel the pulse of the Khoja community through the Awakening Project. Because unless you have data, we sitting in our ivory towers, no disrespect to you, but we sitting in our ivory towers may not really know what the pulse of the community is. So I am dying to find out, because he's just conducted some recent research, and I'm dying to find out what is the pulse of this Khoja community. So I ask you to welcome Sibtain with Narai Sarawat.
بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Thank you very much, Hasnain, and for inviting me to this august audience. And I am also thankful to you all for coming and listening to our thought processes. Hasnain ભાઈ આ કરે છે ને પેલા મને એક ટૂચકો આપો છે તમને. ટૂચકો એટલે વાર્તા. એક પૈસાદાર લાખોપતિ માણસ હતો, એ એની હેલિકોપ્ટરમાં જતો હતો એક ગામડામાંથી બીજે ગામડે, અને એનું હેલિકોપ્ટરનું એન્જિન બગડી ગયું તો એને ઉતારવું પડ્યું. જંગલમાં સખત જંગલ હતું, ભારે જંગલ હતું, અને એને કોઈ દેખાય નહીં એટલે ઝાડ ઉપર ચડ્યો તો એક ગામડિયો આવતો હતો. તો ઉતરીને ગામડિયાને પૂછે છે કે અહીંયા રેલવે સ્ટેશન છે? ગામડિયો કે મને ખબર નથી. હોટેલનો બંદોબસ્ત થઈ શકશે? મને ખબર નથી. પાણીનો બંદોબસ્ત થઈ શકશે? મને ખબર નથી. હવે તમે વિચાર કરો કે આટલા બધા સવાલોમાં એક જ જવાબ આવતો હોય તો તમારું માથું ફરી જાય કે ન ફરી જાય? ફરી જાય. એટલે એણે કીધું ગામડિયાને કે તને કાંઈ ખબર નથી. તો ગામડિયો એને કહે કે મને જે ખબર છે એ તને ખબર નથી. એને કે મને ખબર છે કે હું ક્યાં છું, તને ખબર નથી તું ક્યાં છો.
મને ખબર નથી કે આ કયું
ટૂચકો હતો, એમાંથી તમને ખબર પડશે કે આપણે જરાક એક્સટેન્ડ કરીએ તો આપણી જિંદગીમાં, હું ગુજરાતીમાં નથી આપવાનો, ઇંગ્લિશમાં આપીશ, પણ એક ટૂચકો છે, જરાક એક્સટેન્ડ કરશો તો આપણી જિંદગીમાં તું કોણ છો અને તું ક્યાંથી આવ્યો છો એ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ સબ્જેક્ટ મેટર હોવું જોઈએ. એટલે આજે, today the topic of mine is keeping Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim identity in the 21st century. This is part of the Awakening project, which I started in 2011. I asked myself a couple of questions. One of them was that what are the challenges out there for a community like ours in the 21st century? And whether our community is strong enough to withstand these challenges. And so I started this Awakening project, and I came to a conclusion that the three institutions that are absolutely important and vital for the survival of our community are the Madrasah, the family, and the Mimbar. You remove those three and the community crumbles. So obviously these are the three institutions that we need to microscope and make sure that they are suitable enough to withstand the challenges of our time. And so I would like you to read this vision statement that we have. And I'm going to read it out because it's so important so that you know where I'm coming from. The Awakening Project for the Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri community was established in February 2011 with the aim of initiating discussion and change on its key institutions, the Madrasah, Mimbar, and Family Unit. It is a worldwide grassroots-oriented project that seeks participation and reform from community members themselves, madrasa teachers, professionals, volunteers, scholars, laymen and laywomen, youths, the elderly, and all those interested in meeting current and future social, spiritual, ethical, and cultural challenges. It uses the medium of English as well as Gujarati to revive our Indian heritage and intends to implement changes by working together with Jamaats, Regional Federation, and the World Federation, and thus welcomes their cooperation. Now, this is the vision and the aim, and you can obviously get more information on the website and the Facebook. You just have to put my name and you'll get into it. I just want to emotionally inspire the audience by looking at that particular quote from Imam Ali alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on the man who works out his soul and prepares for his grave and knows where he came from, where he is, and where he is going. The second one is this one. Just think about this. My father speaks Gujarati with ancestral pride and speaks Kutchi to mum and makes it romantic. To friends, he weaves sentences in coastal Swahili laced with Arabic and speaks Urdu with versatility and fluency. So many languages, so many different worlds. Yet, English shrinks him down before a white man, a mind still inferior, a relic from colonial experiences. What a tragedy, I say. Who do you think wrote this? Who do you think wrote this? Yeah. I'll buy a lunch who gets the right name. And this is from Mahatma Gandhi. I do not want my house to be walled in all sides and my windows to be stuffed. I want the cultures of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any. This is an important statement by Mahatma Gandhi. Being a Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri, don't be blown off by winds that are changing you. Okay. Now I want to get the definitions out of the way so we know we are speaking from the same song sheet. Culture means one's language, beliefs, values, customs, and all the other things that make up a community. Identity, it is about how individuals or groups see and define themselves and how others see and define them. There is no religion without culture. There is no culture without religion. The good example is the revelation of Quran that came into a community which did not speak Arabic, which spoke Arabic. So obviously culture and religion are together in that sense. So why should we be interested in our own identity? Well, first of all, how we perceive each other is very important. The questions like who we are and where we came from. When we are asked who we are, tame kon cho, tu kon cho, really what he's asking is, tame kewa cho? Seriously, what are you made of? What is your character? And the idea here is when somebody is asking you, who are you? He's wondering whether, am I like you or am I not like you? Am I different from you? If I'm like you, then I will build friendship with you. If I'm not like you, I will not build friendship with you. This is how marriages and friendships comes about. The issue that we have is within our community, and that is from research, is that when somebody asks us, what is your identity, to be very frank with you, we do struggle. Whereas our community's identity is a moving reality. It's in front of us. This is a moving reality. The fact that we are discussing the Khoja heritage, this is a moving reality for us. And yet we struggle. The fact is that for 160 years we have survived. We did not have land. We did not have army. We did not have oil wells, and yet we survived. How did we survive? Why did we survive? What are our strengths? That's our identity that comes into play now. And then, of course, we have the Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim diaspora. You know, we live throughout the world now. We cross boundaries every day, cultural boundaries, beliefs boundaries, ethics boundaries. We have to negotiate these boundaries. And so identity becomes very important for youth and future generation. When I was conducting a seminar in Birmingham, Jamaat, amongst the youths, there were quite a few of them, about more than 100. One of the issues that we had is that really they did not understand about Khoja heritage. They did not feel that we're part of it, although they are swimming in it. The youths were swimming in it, and the question that I raised with them is that, look, if you are not interested in this community, and yet you get the benefits of this community, you swim in it, and if you don't contribute the way our generations have contributed to make this community a moving community, what guarantee is there that this community will be just like this, giving benefits to your children and grandchildren and grandchildren? You are taking as granted that this community will survive like that. We've got to contribute and have to understand where we have come from and where we want to go. So basically what happened was that I wrote 2 papers, how important is our Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim identity to us. And in February this year, I wrote a paper, Are we losing our sense of Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim identity? Professor Iqbal would not consider these academic papers. They're very, very semi-academic to get to the audience, but you can get the feel of it. The wording is our sense of Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri. And you know what? For a passive community of ours, I did receive lots of comments on this. And so what happened was that the young people arranged a seminar on Khoja identity. And I learned a lot of things from there. And then what happened was that I devised a second survey of Awakening project, which is on Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim identity. It focused on the future of our community. There were 3 parts of the questionnaire: background, which meant the gender, where you were born and all that, and then the views on our culture and identity issues, specific questions. And then the suggestion for preserving our identity, see if they have any ideas. And I sent about 800 throughout the world. And some of them you may have received it, but you know, when you conduct a survey in our community, if I send 1,000, guess how many do I receive? Guess. Maybe 50, 100. But for this one, I received 200 out of 800. So there is interest in our community's identity. And you see, this was a pilot project, so this was the basis for better methodologies and all that. So there we are. I'm going to share some of these things. 179 respondents, and you can see the age range. 50% were over 50. And almost 20% were between 21 and 30. Now that's a good contribution that I'm getting. So that's the age range that I had. So, you know, I was very satisfied with that. The gender, only 23% of the female participated. But then I don't have females data, so it's very difficult. 77%. But even then, I was very happy that 23% contributions came from the female. Locations, you can see from all over the world. So, you know, for me, it was a good sort of spread. Now, this is the actual presentation now. Direction of presentation until the end would be the question that I'm trying to, or will be trying to share and answer with you is what is the basis for evolving our community for the 21st century. And the key factors that I would talk about is identity itself, integration, and change. So let's begin. Now these, when the survey came, the survey had a question on my language Gujarati, how important it is. And it ranged, the scores range from not important to very important. 72% of the respondents say that the Gujarati language for them is very important. 90% say it is important. And the basis of that, from the comments I received, is that it provides an interlocking amongst the community, a basis for interlocking in the community. So that's wonderful for me, because I like Gujarati. Khoja, by the way, is a secret language which, as I understand it when I was researching, is that that particular language was used as a secret language, so nobody knows what Khoja is about, if they wanted to find out. Anyway, the next one is, this is my Islamic belief. So language was very important, almost 90%. Belief, very important, 95%. Sorry, very important, yeah, 95%. Important, 98%. So two things fundamentally is the basis for identity: bhasha and religion. So faith and language is very important in preserving the identity. That's what comes out from the survey. As far as the integration is concerned, I asked this particular question: do you find a conflict between your own Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri identity and the influence of modern Western culture on your... almost 1 in 3 find that there is a conflict. And so obviously I did the analysis. It's a very preliminary analysis. When I looked at why, for example, there is a conflict when the families came over to the West, so the implications when we came over to the West was this particular one: need for the dominant language of the adopted countries. We needed to understand, be skilled in the language of the country that we came to. So English became very important, French became very important, Portuguese became very important. And what happened was that there was so much emphasis on that, that soon the language which was spoken in the house and the language which was spoken in the society became one. So Gujarati wasn't a check and balance anymore. English was the check and balance in our thought processes. And when the home language and the society language becomes one, lots of influences begin to come. And then the cultural conflicts begin, the religious conflicts begin. And of course, the passing of our heritage language, Gujarati and Kutchi, to our children became quite minimized. Nobody was really interested in the 70s, 80s, but you know what the identity survey revealed? Those over 50 plus are very, very solid in saying that we should pass our Kutchi and Gujarati to our, whereas those over 20 and 30 are not that much interested. And I say to them, yet, become 40 and 50 with children, and you will find, oh, I wish I would have passed my Kutchi and Gujarati language to my children. But this is a survey which is saying. And then, of course, abandoning our cultural heritage and religious values. If you look at the history of London Jamaat, for example, in the 50s and 60s, they were more willing to adapt the culture and the values of the West. But come 79 onwards, 80s and 90s, back on the track again. But then the community became very religious in their rituals and everything else. And the family had their own adopted style. And you can see duality existing in the mindset of a child or a student. At home and in Mimbar, a different sort of behavior, and then outside it's a different behavior. This duality is a tension which really we need to reconcile. As far as the consequences of this conflict is concerned, I'm still studying the comments, which are approximately 500 to 700 comments that I've received. So I need to go through them and analyze them. As far as identity and change is concerned, as Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheris, I have found out in my research that whenever Khoja experiences a thing, he makes a structure. So our experiences allowed us to have our Jamaat, and then the regional federation, and then the welfare. We always organize through our experiences, which is a good asset for our community. The thing is that to run these organizations, to run these structures, we need the active participation of the grassroots. And that is a dwindling factor at the moment. You talk to the presidents, you talk to the leadership of our Jamaats and the federation, they do admit that we do not have as much participation as we wish. We're still looking and hunting for volunteers. In our AGM, we find that the number of people come are not as many. And then, of course, the other thing is that when we need support from the community, that also sometimes can be dwindling. But to be very frank with you, whenever there is an event, our community have rallied and supported the leadership, which is our strength. Our relationship with others outside of our, so we need to really have that inter-engagement solidly so that we can keep on our structure alive and moving. Our relationship with others outside of our community, well, we don't have a sustainable way of engaging with outside. That is what has come up in the survey as well. As far as notion of Khoja-ness amongst our youth is concerned, our youth do struggle with the notion of Khoja-ness, Khoja. They say, well, in our life, Khoja is irrelevant. Sadly and unfortunately, one of the reasons why they do find that is because they are not aware of their heritage. And when they are made aware of their heritage, they do become proud of the fact that they have a heritage, that they have an identity, that they don't have to laugh it off when somebody else makes jokes about Khojas. No, they will stand there and defend themselves. If they know who they are, and if they know where they come from, and if they know how much balidan, that means blood and sweat, our great-grandfathers have put in to make this community available to us. The last thing is qualitative level of change. Change is very uncomfortable. When we want to make change, there has to be a basis. One of the bases of formidable change in our community, a progressive change in our community, is that we must have principles of our faith, which should give us the dynamism to become progressive as a community. And of course, the other thing is heritage. So there is a challenge of change in our community. Change is uncomfortable, absolutely uncomfortable. We are in our sociological landscape today is very complicated. We live in a globalized world. We have so many cultures living with us. It's a plural world out there. And we have to negotiate ourselves, our identity, our religion, our faith, everything. So if we remain as we are, would we survive? That's another question. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But that's the challenge of change. It's very uncomfortable. How do we deal with change? The biggest question we have as a community, how can we manage change in a global world which is diverse, which is plural, and all sorts of challenges are there, as you know. I don't have to go through them. So what we need to, if we need to change, we have to ask ourselves, well, what is the vehicle which would allow us to change? The first thing we have to do is where we are. And if I show you this, a thick community has a very thick wall around it. No outsider can come in, no different values can come in, no different culture can come in, no different race can come in. Are we at this stage? Are we a thick community? No more. Okay, let me show you this then. Are we this community then? Maximum individualism, maximum diversity, maximum freedom, community gone. Do we want to be there? If we don't do a managed change, we will end up there. And then we'll lose the whole background and heritage that we had, because we'll be there. And in Hassan, I've got time, yes? Okay. 1987, how many of you have heard of the wonderful intellectual of our community. His name was Qasim Ali Nazrali Panju. He died, I think, in Mombasa, but he was in Toronto, and he wrote in 1987 a letter to the president of the World Federation, the president of Africa Federation, president of all the Jamaats, and his title was Mari Bhasha. This was his dard, depression. He was saying, he could have said Amari Bhasha, but he said Mari Bhasha. And one of the, itla mudda hota tha, ghana badha mudda hota, but one principal foundational statement that he made in that letter, and it's fantastic. He said, "Mane બીક છે કે જ્યારે આપણી કોમની ઘરની ભાષા, સમજો છો ગુજરાતી? ઘરની ભાષા અને પ્રજાની ભાષા સાથે થઈ જશે, એટલે કે ઇંગ્લિશ, તો કે આપણો એ વખત આવશે કે જ્યાં ક્રિશ્ચન ને યહૂદીનો એક વખત હતો કે જ્યાં એ લોકોની વેલ્યુઝ ક્રિશ્ચનની વેલ્યુઝ હતી. 1950 પછી એ લોકોની ક્રિશ્ચન વેલ્યુઝ બધી કતલ થઈ ગઈ, નીકળી ગઈ. મને ડાઉટ છે કે જ્યારે આ બે ઘર અને પ્રજાની ભાષા એક થઈ જશે તો ઇસ્લામિક વેલ્યુઝ પણ આવી જ રીતે આપણે કાઢી નાખશું. આજે નહીં, એક જનરેશન પછી એ નહીં, પણ કે એના જનરેશન પછી નીકળી જશે. So we don't want to be there. So how are we going to, we have to be somewhere. We can't be a thick community, and we don't want to be a thin community, so we have to be somewhere. We want to be somewhere in the right place. I hope a reasonable place. In English, a reasonable word is a good word. Anything you say reasonable is acceptable. So reasonable, yes? The vehicle that can take us to a comfortable place in 21st century is community's fundamental values. And when you study the constitutions of our Jamaats, study 100 constitutions of our Jamaat, you know what we get? We get this. We get these core values which are our identity. These are ideal that we have put it in our constitutions and in our ways of working. We may not get to that, but we want to try to get there. These are our fundamental values. We want to have taqwa in our community, definitely. We want to do the right things. We must have wisdom in our community. We must have integrity in our community. We must have justice and fairness in our community. And we must have compassion and caring in our community. These are our core values. These are fundamental, universal values that Islam is asking us all to promote and to have. So if we have these values as a vehicle upon which we could then do the changes from that thick community to wherever we want to be using these principal values, then we will be comfortable. As Professor Iqbal Akhtar says, that our identity became much more religious, and we started to absorb religious values. These are our values, universal values, with which we can move forward. Wisdom is the lost property of the believer. So let's look at our own community. If there is something wrong, let's get rid of it. If it's not within those values, let's get rid of it. Look at the wider society we are living in and be selective. Take the good and discard the bad. Bring to the wider society all the good things. Take from other cultures all that is good. This is how we may have to develop our identity in the future. This is the track. This is my opinion, by the way, and I'm sharing it with you. And I hope that I can convince you. So, basis for evolving Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri Muslim identity in the 21st century, we have 4 positives. Now, I'm not going into the negatives because what's the point in going to the negatives? Let's look at the positives and let's work on it. We've got 4 positives there. The first one is that we have a foundational overarching principles that come from the Quran. O mankind, indeed we created you from a male and female and made you nations and tribes that you may identify with one another. Indeed, the noblest of you in the sign of Allah is the most God-ready. Surah Al-Hujurat. This is the foundational principle that Allah has given. He has created diversity, communities. so that we can identify ourselves. When you contextualize this verse, and I'm going to read it out because it's very important. In our globalized world, Muslims have no alternative but to organize themselves into smaller groups based on their ethnicity or geographic origin for the sake of peaceful coexistence and efficiency. It is impossible for any person or institution to serve the whole ummah. Therefore, to undertake to serve part of ummah is also viable. To organize ourselves based on our socio-religious ethnicity is fine. To help each other and then help the ummah. So the only un-Islamic or anti-Islamic action would be to consider oneself to be superior to others. This means acting on the core values that we all subscribe to. The second positive is towards multiple identity. You know, we started with Khoja Satpanthi, and then into the Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri Muslim. You know, I give credit to the foresightedness of our grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-grandfathers that they gave us a multiple identity, which we can develop now. They called us Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri, Muslim. And now we can become Khoja, Shia, Ithna-Asheri, Muslim, Canadian, British, Tanzanian, Kenyan. Nothing wrong with it. As we traverse the world, as we cross the boundaries, we become our identity as multifarious and multi-purpose as we want. Whereas our core values remain the same. And we move forward on the vehicle of our core values. That's the second positive. The third positive is how others see us. As a Gujarati community, you know, others really value what we are and how. The fact that we are a Gujarati. Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri Muslim community is flexible, tolerant, understanding, adaptable. They are very family and business oriented, aren't we not? We are. And don't we like our children to be professionals? Yes. The statistics tells us. And then we are Gujaratis. And Gujaratis by nature are philanthropists. By the way, that's the research. Like, well, if you want it, I'll give it to you. Gujaratis, they are philanthropists. So you see, we've got a lot of things going for us. This is the third positive that we have. Let's not ignore our assets that we have. And the fourth positive is the necessary ingredients for us to move forward in the 21st century. We have languages. I haven't got the slide that one of the Jamaat in Europe produced of how many languages we as a community can at least understand, not speak and write, understand. And unfortunately, it's a diminishing return now, but we can at least speak 4 or 5 languages within a community. Understand, speak. So we have languages. Now we need to do something about it because it's diminishing, and our up-and-coming young generations need to understand that at least then they should know and understand what the heritage language is. That doesn't mean that you don't speak other languages and you don't master the other languages, but at least if somebody says, who are you? Then you say, I am a Khoja Shia Ithna-Asheri, and I can speak Gujarati at least. You know, when I was in Iran 2001, the immigration officer he saw my passport. So he says to me, who are you? So I said, I'm a British citizen. But who are you? Tu છો કોણ? ભલે તારી પાસે આ પ્લાસ્ટિક પેપર છે અને પ્લાસ્ટિક પાસપોર્ટ છે. You know, there's a difference between state and nation. When you are given a passport, this is a certificate or a document from a state. State recognize you as part of their state. But we Muslims are not part of the nations of the great European history yet. The great European history has Christianity and Judaism in there. Islam is not part of that nation of European culture. Whose job is it to make it part of the European nation of cultures? Our job, youngsters' job. That doesn't mean that you lose your identity, but make Islam part of the nation of Europe. You don't have that issues here, but we have. And I don't want to get into that because I don't have time. And Hasnain is just looking at me through these glasses of his. Right, so core values, languages, community history we have. 160 years we've survived without land, oil. And we have networking and versatility. The issue of, Professor Iqbal, how about doing a work on Niyaz? Fantastic. That's how we do networking and versatility, become versatile. Very quickly, I have, in my Awakening project, I am proposing some solutions, all right? And I'm just going to share it with you very quickly. What we know that we have a common Jamaat hierarchy. Toronto Jamaat has a vertical hierarchy. A small Jamaat in Europe or in Africa, they have a horizontal hierarchy. So, president have to do everything. In Toronto, president may not have to do everything. They can delegate. But in a small Jamaat, it's very difficult. So we have that hierarchy. And the thing is, the step 2 is to have that realization that family unit, Madrasah and Mimbar have overlapping relationships. And if we accept the fact that family issues and Mimbar issues and Madrasah issues can be tackled together because they overlap, that's the second step, that realization. And then the third step would be that we can all work together. Those three institutions can work together in an interlocking way. The thing is that they're not working together in an interlocking way at this stage in time. We have, but we haven't consolidated. We haven't put it together. And then, of course, a possible dynamic structure is the formation of a joint board where parents, madrasa teachers, and alims and ulamas all come together on a board, and that is a permanent board residing permanently within the Executive Council and staring at the President and staring at the Executive Council all the time. These are our issues. When are you going to solve them? When are we going to give the resources? We have the expertise. So that's something that I'm trying to sort of further that. And the step 5 is the convergence between the executive and the board to tackle Mimbar, Madrasah and family issues. The board will provide the expertise, and the executive committee will provide the resources, the financial ones. And hopefully, the model can progress further. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. That's the reason why we're working within the structure. And the other solution is open community university with madrasa as a base for developing a mindset of a child to live in 21st century. Conclusion. The survey so far shows people care about their community, want to preserve their beliefs, language, and culture, but adapt to changes in a pluralized and globalized society. How do we do this? I'm sharing this with you. Awakening Project focuses on reformation of Mimbar, Madrasah, and family unit as a tool to manage this change without losing our core Islamic and cultural values. If we make these three institutions dynamic, if we make our Islamic scholars dynamic, if we make our parents and children dynamic to live in 21st century, we will have a superb community surviving and moving forward. Inshallah.